Good morning. My name is Dawn Marie Hayes. I'm Associate Professor of Medieval European History in the Department of History here at Montclair State University. So let me begin with a question. Who here has seen The Godfather? Okay, a number of you. I think most of us can agree that it's left an indelible mark on people's perception of Italian Americans. If the History Channel can be believed, and this is a quote, the mafia has become the primary pop culture expression of the Italian American identity, much to the dismay of many Italian Americans, largely due to the enduring influence of Francis Ford Coppola's 1972 Oscar-winning smash hit film. I'd be lying if I said that it did not have an impact on me too. As a young girl growing up in New York City in the 70s and 80s, in an Italian American home that was dominated by Sicilian Americans. It really did affect the way I saw myself as a Sicilian American, and particularly as a woman. Case in point, as I went on to earn a PhD in history, I chose to study France and England, to which I have no personal connection, over Italy, about which I registered little interest during my younger years. Then one day in 2004, I received an invitation from friends who had recently bought a small house in Sicily. They asked my family and me to visit them that August. And given the ambivalence I felt about Sicily, I was very apprehensive. By that time, my husband Joe and I had 4 kids, and it would be a significant commitment of time and money to take them there. But in the end, we decided to go. And what unfolded over the next week or so was a life-changing experience for me. Somehow, all the apprehensiveness I had had about being a Sicilian American was resolved. Sicily's long history, rich culture, and jaw-dropping beauty, along with the time that separated me from my younger years, were more than enough to heal the wounds of the past. I was enchanted at first by the things that become immediately apparent when traveling there: the sun, the sea, the food, and the people. But I also became captivated by the things you have to work harder at to get to know better, and that mainly was the island's history and its culture. And being a medievalist, the island's Norman past was like a magnet, a force from which I couldn't separate myself. In short, there was simply no way I would leave Sicily not having been transformed. Personally, I felt as if I had come full circle by 2004, like I had returned to my home roots. And professionally, I felt a world of opportunity had just opened up, that I would follow a new and unexpected path as a teacher and a scholar. Since the fateful summer of 2004, I have returned to Sicily almost every year. And as I've done so, I've come to know it a little better each time. I gradually changed my scholarly focus. I learned about the sources that survived from the period. I became familiar with the historiography of Sicily's medieval past. And yes, I began to learn Italian. These efforts have led me to write a book on Roger II, Sicily's first king, that places the exotic kingdom he created in the middle of not just a vibrant Mediterranean multicultural world, but also of a wider European continent. I even created and directed here at MSU what was at the time one of the very few study abroad opportunities for college students to study in Sicily being offered by an American university. And I acknowledge here the support of one particular alumnus, Angelo Calli, remarkable for not only his generosity, but also for his own Sicilian heritage, who supported the program from the outset. The MSU in Sicily Study Abroad program was a wonderful experience that not only introduced a good number of students to a land that is often overlooked by Americans who travel to Italy, and also challenges the Italian-American stereotypes I mentioned earlier, it also produced long friendships and even a marriage of 2 MSU students. The program was very personal, and more personal than I had realized at first. And in fact, it wasn't until a few years later, when I applied for dual Italian citizenship, that I realized I had been leading students of this university, to the very cathedral where my own great-grandfather had been baptized in 1902. And at the same time, I began to seek out what remained from these Norman centuries, the period from about 1061 to 1194, so the 11th and 12th centuries, arguably the best years in the island's long history. It was a time when Sicily was incredibly prosperous and powerful, and a striking balance to the negative stereotypes people sometimes, maybe even often, associate with the island. The road trips to the old, withering, and often difficult to find relics of Sicily's Norman kingdom proliferated over the years, and by 2015, it had become clear to me that I had accumulated, through the kindness and generosity of countless Sicilians, thousands of photos of places that people just do not see. And this realization was serendipitous. It came within months of an important announcement by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, also known by shorthand UNESCO, in July of the same year, that it had registered a number of sites, collectively known as Arab Norman Palermo and the cathedral churches of Cefalù and Monreale, on its World Heritage List on account of their, quote, outstanding universal value. The 9 monuments are cited as examples of, quote, socio-cultural syncretism, unquote, and testaments to the, quote, fruitful coexistence of people of different origins and religions, unquote. And yet, while they bear witness to the beauty made possible by collaboration across cultures, at the same time, they feed hopes of a better and more peaceful coexistence in the future. This was exciting. The society on which UNESCO was focusing was the very same one that had produced the tens of sites I had been visiting and photographing for the past decade. Sicily was finally getting some well-deserved positive attention. No small feat, given that it competes with numerous other regions in the country that hosts the most World Heritage Sites, Italy. In fact, so the announcement of 2015 was good and important, but ultimately, though understandably given constraints imposed by time and money, it provided for just 9 monuments out of the hundreds that still exist in various states of preservation and decay. In fact, the vast majority of the sites that fall under this Arab Norman heading are constantly threatened by all sorts of complications and dangers. Some are caused by man, for example, lack of maintenance, poor access, the perils of urban expansion, and human impact. But there are natural ones as well. For example, geographical remoteness. Most often, these monuments are off the beaten path in areas where few Sicilians, let alone tourists, travel. As the Normans conquered the island from the Muslim rulers who had been in control of it throughout the 11th century, they built many of their castles, monasteries, and churches high up, which made sense since it provided security, right? But today those elevations are challenging, even for a car ride. Other natural challenges to these monuments include earthquakes. Sicily is in a fairly active seismic zone, frequent wildfires, particularly during the summer months, and in the case of some of the monuments on the eastern part of the island, even volcanic eruption. One of Europe's most active volcanoes is Mount Etna on the eastern coast. So I meditated on this and began to think out loud, along with Joe, my husband, who is a senior software engineer in the private sector, how we could use technology to document this extraordinary past and make it widely available to anyone who is interested in learning about it. And so we began to develop a plan for a digital effort, ambitious and long-term, to document the Norman Kingdom of Sicily. It is an effort to make this amazing heritage available to teachers, students, scholars, and the general public, the data we have available for the Norman Kingdom of Sicily, as well as to challenge people to consider Sicily beyond the stereotypes they pick up from The Godfather and similar media representations of southern Italy and its people. In short, in this developing site, we present Sicily during what is perhaps its finest period of all. With this in mind, we have begun to develop a web app called the Norman Sicily Project, which is gradually bringing together into a single website the monasteries, castles, churches, palaces, bridges, and other known monuments from the Norman Kingdom. Using modern web development techniques and semantic web technologies, the web app will use images, documents, basic identifying information, geolocation data, and in some cases videos, to capture and promote access to that very heritage that UNESCO called out in 2015 for having extraordinary universal value. But it is far more inclusive as it will be more comprehensive, and it'll go beyond those 9 sites. And ultimately, it will also render an extensive genealogy that contains hundreds of records for these Norman kings and their extended family, demonstrating the broad kinship network they had across the European continent that situated Sicily in a complicated greater Europe. I won't spend a lot of time on specifics, but if you're interested in learning more about the project's scope or the technologies it employs, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to provide further details. What I want to do, though, is to leave you with an impression of what makes this project special. In addition to the access it provides to Sicily's Norman heritage, the Norman Sicily project is also remarkable in 2 other ways that enable me to spotlight the fine work other members of the team are doing. From a technological perspective, the project is also notable for its use of open-linked data. In other words, it will publish its data so that they can be interlinked with other sites which provide similar kinds of information on Sicily, so that we can offer a richer and more nuanced virtual experience of the island. The data will be freely available for anyone to download. Here I want to acknowledge Joe's important contributions. Without his efforts, this would not be possible. The project is also notable for the sustainability-related data it will provide, thanks to Dr. Greg Pope in the Department of Earth and Environmental Studies. By assessing the stones of some of these monuments and the external threats to their existence, we are triaging these relics of a distant past while offering a basic prognosis. This information will be available in the database as well, and will give visitors a sense of the site's stability at the time of the visit and the geological and geographical issues the monuments confront. In addition, the Norman Sicily project could provide a model for other economically challenged regions. It is in no way a substitute for the actual preservation of these buildings, but it may be just the best thing. And it certainly makes the heritage available to all sorts of people who, under other circumstances, would never or could never encounter it. This project is a multi-year effort, one that will take a significant amount of time to accomplish. And although it is fairly advanced in conceptualization, it is in the very early stages of implementation. And I'd like to note here that we are very grateful to the Angelo and Mary Kelly Fund for Italian Studies, the Office of the Dean of MSU's College of Humanities and Social Sciences, and MSU's PSC&G Institute for Sustainability Studies for its seed support that has been so important to the significant foundational work that has already been done. Currently, we are applying to a number of major funding programs for support so that we can continue to move the project forward. With all this said, I'd like to close by saying that we welcome both collaboration and financial support. If you would like to participate in the project or become a sponsor, please don't hesitate to contact us. By doing so, you would become part of an effort to make available an incredibly important chapter in Sicily's past that challenges the negative stereotypes many harbor about this complicated region, and at the same time, you'd be helping to develop a web app model that could be used to the benefit of other cultural underdogs across the globe. Thank you.